Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Music in Our World podcast. I am coming at you solo today. I wanted to talk about something that has been a consideration of mine. I don't know, I guess always, as any, really anybody working can probably relate to, but I know a lot of musicians consider the aspect of travel when they are looking for work. They're considering taking a gig or weighing the costs and the pros and cons. But I travel a lot, and by a lot I mean just to get to where I teach music every day, basically every day during the week, is about an hour driving. So I've been thinking a lot about it, and I think it's an interesting topic because when I've talked with my friends about it before, they all have very different and interesting takes, and everybody I've talked to has valid concerns or things that they consider. But also I think it's just good to think about, especially if you're a musician or if you're considering doing any significant amount of freelance work or being a horn for hire or however you want to call it. It's important to consider the aspects of travel. So I get where I'm coming from in this is playing drums. There's a lot of different genres that you could reasonably take part in. For example, probably my first really big gig, and that took a lot of time and required a lot of travel, was playing with my buddy Jack Nelson, who's a great singer, great songwriter. He's got his band, and they tour the country and play really great music at really great places. And so I kind of like to start there whenever I think about when I discuss travel with people, and it's sort of like next level travel, but it's actual touring. We load up. In those days we loaded up Jack's truck and his travel trailer, and we would drive from where we started, where the band formed in Huntsville, and we'd go over to Midland. We'd go to Waco. We played a festival in San Antonio. All around the place. And my experiences with that are completely invaluable. I don't think that I would be who I am today if I didn't sort of get that experience and have those stories to tell. Especially country music in Texas. It's obviously very, very popular, and if you know what you're doing and you are good at what you do, you could, I wouldn't say easily, but you could reasonably support yourself just playing country music, because there's a lot of people that love to hear it, and they go out on a Friday night, Saturday night, and go dancing, have a good time, and so there's a market for it. The thing about it is, depending on where you're from, where you're starting from, where home is, I guess, and how aggressively you're booking and who there might be, especially in Texas, there might be a city 6 hours away from you that would love to hear you play and is going to pay you a decent rate, tip you in, maybe get you a couple drinks at the bar, and just show you a good time. Be very hospitable and very fair, in my opinion. That's some of the most consistently well-paying and welcoming environments. And I'm not a country dude by any stretch of the imagination, and I never really acted like a country dude or dressed the part. But everybody I met was always super nice. No one was like, how come you're not wearing Wranglers? How come you're wearing jeans that fit a little closer? Well, yeah, that's just me. but that it never came up. I just went there and threw down some drum parts and had a great time. But I had to ask myself every time, because Jack would call me up, and it would be, I think one of the first places like Livingston was, I don't know, between 30 minutes and an hour away from where we were with loading and driving and stopping for gas or whatever. And so I had to ask myself, man, do I want to sit in a truck with 3 other sweaty dudes and then go play a smoky bar? And you know what? I'm glad I did it. I don't think that that kind of thing isn't for everyone, but I'm kind of soft. I think that if I can have a good time, if I can kind of do the mental gymnastics it takes, just realize that there's a lot of good people that really, really enjoy that music and are willing to support people that play it. So that part meant a lot. But I'm thinking, okay, I'm probably not going to sleep very well. I'm probably not going to eat very well. I ate a lot of strawberry puffs, little chewy gummy candies when I was playing with Jack. But it's one of those things you have to think about it all the way through. If someone offers you a show really far away and a convoy kind of thing, think about, are you driving? Can you at least rest a little bit? If you need to practice, can you practice? If you need to space out, can you put some headphones on and space out? And it was always a good situation with Jack. Even though sometimes you end up in a dodgy part of town, or you a couple times if like the truck explodes or an axle falls off or something. But it's some of the best stories that I have are from those days when we ran out of gas, or we got a flat tire in the middle of nowhere and we had to wait 2 hours just sitting there on the side of the road. But I learned mandolin actually on one of those days. Played mandolin for the first time. I think we even wrote a song. I don't know if we ever actually finished it or whatever, but it's hard to get that. It's hard to get that kind of experience just doing close shows. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, sometimes it's more convenient, and if you can make enough money doing it, sure. But if you're offered a show with some travel, especially via road trip, man, it's worth it. At the end of the day, I would say it's definitely worth. I'm a tall-ish dude. I don't know. I'm 6'1". I don't really fit in most vehicles comfortably, and if I got shotgun, it's great. If I didn't get shotgun, like I ended up sitting next to a broken window and a flapping garbage bag or whatever. But just kind of learn to roll with it. It's very much it's the same as all of music and all of life, really. There's going to be some things that are kind of hard about it. But this has definitely been on my mind over the last couple of weeks as we prepare to go on tour with Zero Detail. See, by the time this comes out, we may be. I think we'll still be a few weeks out. I've got a couple of podcasts in the bank, so kind of thinking about how to release those. But I think by the time this comes out, we won't yet be on tour. But I'm really, really excited to that. I know it's going to be. I think our first show is like Houston proper, and then we're going down to like Corpus Christi. So we're doing the tour thing kind of right off the bat. We're playing the show and then packing up and getting out of town, post haste even. But so if you can get some of those gigs, that are an hour or two or 6 hours away if you're in Texas, away from home, if there's any possible way you can work it out and you're maybe apprehensive about it, just go ahead and do it. The things about I'll cover this a little bit later when I get to talk about some of my teaching stuff, but the time away from home, getting out and seeing something different is, for a lot of people, I think, is very therapeutic, and it helps to sort of shake the cobwebs out and rekindle an inspirational flame if it's been getting burnt out. I don't know, and it's not everybody has the opportunity to play those, but if you can work it out, if someone offers you something, say, at least consider it. Think about, it'd be great to get out and see some new places and play for people you may never played for before, and indeed may never play for again. But if you enjoy what you do, it's good to get out and experience the world and share that with people. And then, as you create more, you'll have a lot more experiences to draw from than you would if you just kind of stayed in the same zip code. But just something that I always like to tell people to consider. And it doesn't always work. I've had to turn down tours before. Actually, I left Jack's band because I got a full-time job teaching. I was a band director, and he's like, yeah, well, we're gonna leave Thursday night, and we'll probably come back the next day. Like, oh, yeah, I have class Thursday, Friday, and Monday and Tuesday, so I'd love to meet you somewhere on the weekends, but sometimes it doesn't work out, especially if you're teaching and you have a pretty solid schedule, or if you have a full-time job where you're not offered vacation days or paid time off or even unpaid time off. So it's not always possible, but definitely something to consider. But the other thing about travel, so I also relate traveling to when I teach. So when I first started, I guess, teching just as a marching band technician, and I was in college, and I'm 18 or 19, and I had a friend who was kind of going back and helping with his high school, and we were super close. So he was like, hey, this dude plays bass drum. If you need an extra set of eyes, maybe he can work with the basses, and I'll do the upper battery, and you can take front ensemble. And I think that's the deal we had for a year or two. So I got to sort of hone my craft as a bass line instructor and just general teacher person kinds of things. But that gig was an hour away from school. And then there was the extra time commitment of, not only the travel, but you're there kind of late into the evening, and then you got to drive all the way back to school and then continue your studies. So I think most of the people, in the marching band world, if you do get a tech spot, if let's say you're in college, there's only 2 or 3 jobs to be had in your immediate area, because there might be a local high school, but there might not be. So you might have to do some traveling to find those opportunities. But just like going on tour with Jack, I had to sit there and think about it. It's like, okay, I got offered this gig, and it's not a lot of money, and sometimes it's even we'll let you travel with the band and ask questions of the full-time band directors and sort of get really good field experience that way. And so sometimes you might not even take home any money from it at first, at least. So it's something to consider. Is this program worth it? Are the people that I'm teaching with, are they worth the drive and the extra stress and that? But in the end, I think most times it's yes. Even a program that maybe isn't super developed or not very successful from a numerical standpoint, there's always so much to learn. And if you're willing to take that step and drive a little bit, it's super, super helpful. I know in my musical career, my willingness to travel has opened up a lot of doors that would definitely have stayed closed had I not. When I was in college, I was actually studying as a composer, so there was not any sort of education component. There was not any student teaching. As far as teaching band goes, I wasn't even studying percussion. I was kind of learning to teach percussion in the field, and I had my playing experiences to draw from, but I had the people that I was teaching with were always super helpful and very supportive, and it helps them if their techs know what they're doing and there's a cohesive approach. So I got used to working on a team and learning from people a lot more experienced than I was, and so in that regard, it was definitely valuable. And I was, if you're 19 or 20, especially if you're either getting financial aid or you're getting help from mom and dad paying some bills, and you can stand the hit to your gas tank and your wallet. It will pay for itself later, because once you get some experience, maybe you win a couple of caption trophies, or maybe start learning how to write for different ensembles. It's worth it. As far as band goes, not having a lot of experience in other realms with this, as far as like traveling to teach goes, there's not really a marching band analog for your orchestra or your choir, but I think that if you can develop a relationship with a full-time director to maybe at least go observe, if they've got time, or any sort of extracurricular singing or string ensembles, like maybe help with a bass sectional, or help with the violas, if they're rehearsing after school, even if you can't get in during the school day. Or another thing that I kind of got my feet wet in during school was private lessons. It's kind of the same thing. If somebody that plays the same instrument that you teach is already teaching in the area where you're at school, well, what are you going to do? You're going to have to travel some, and it's worth it. I mean, you get used to the distance that you have to go. It just becomes part of your day. I know for sure for me, I know the roads that lead to the private lesson studio where I work. I know them pretty well, and I don't even really notice how long the drive is anymore, just because I've learned so much and grown so much as a teacher and as a musician from my experience. And I had to think really hard about going back. Once I kind of left the retail world, actually for my bigger teaching gigs that I've had in the last couple of years, I had to think about it. It's like, well, I just drove all the way across the country for a teaching gig. Do I really want that to be part of my daily life? And just the connections that I've got, and the experience and the growth that I've found at this particular place, I think is worth it. And the travel allows me to do lots of things. I listen to a lot of podcasts. I actually record several podcasts on the way to and from teaching. I can do so hands-free. I'm not being unsafe. It's just like singing to the radio, except I've got a microphone turned on, and that's pretty much it. But it's worth it. At the end of the day, I think the main takeaway from is it worth it? I think for most of the time it is, and it may not seem like it at first. I know when I started, I think there was probably a couple of times where I was like, hey man, I'm out of gas and I want to go home the next weekend, so I don't think I'm going to make it to marching band rehearsal. As long as you're communicating and doing your due diligence, do what you can, but try to make it out. Try to, especially if you're in college and you're not yet out in the professional world, try to get some traveling done. Try to go somewhere else and meet new people and teach, or if you're looking to play some gigs, find some gigs outside of your immediate area. It will serve you well, and even if you only do it once a year, if you only play a non-home show once a year, it's definitely worth it. So I wish I had some reassurance when I was in college, because it gets rough. It does, for sure. Consistently traveling to play or teach, but it's really wonderful. And I know that there's a lot of people that are either done with college or maybe didn't even go to school for music, and maybe want to pick up a gig or two here and there, or people that are kind of in my boat where they're freelancing, and you've exhausted some of the options or all of the options, or there's not any places to play, for pay at least, that are anywhere nearby. Sort of the professional side of things after college. It's some of my favorite gigs are those that require travel. My current, I guess, biggest teaching role right now is in Virginia. Obviously, I don't live in Virginia, but last summer, or this summer, I guess, in 2019, I decided, okay, I'm going there, but I don't want to take the opportunity or take the risk of trying to fly standby and being 6 days late because I couldn't get on, or I didn't want the expense of a plane ticket. So I was like, fine, let's drive. I went ahead and I drove over there, and I have a couple of vlogs that sort of cover that, and then there's a podcast episode that's already been released where I talk about some of the specific things on that trip, and how the kids and the other instructors definitely made the drive worth it. So I mean, that was a complete shot in the dark, that I ended up getting hooked up with this program, but I think it's been really, really great so far, and it would have been really hard to do if I'd been like, well, no, it's too far. I think if there's a way to find a way to make it work, then please do it. A lot of my composition clients and bands I arrange for, or groups that I write for in general, are not here. And it's some of that is remote connections, like Facebook or whatever, people that see my website. But a lot of times I'll try to be like, okay, if I'm going to write for your band, I want to come up and see them. Like I want to meet the kids that I'm going to be writing for. I want to meet the ensemble that I'm going to be creating music for, so that I can do the best job as possible. And also just to have an excuse to meet new people. So, my thoughts on travel, I think, are just, they're really straightforward, and my experiences have been mostly good. Aside from, I don't know, one or two venues when I was playing with Jack stiffed us and tried to not pay us, and we ended up getting it worked out. But you spend a day or two and maybe you sleep less than you prefer, or you don't get to eat as fancy of a meal as you prefer. It's worth it, and I think it's one of the things that helps professional musicians become professional musicians. I would definitely love to hear y'all's thoughts on travel. And a lot of these stories were sort of anecdotal, but I think they're telling. And there are a couple of caveats I want to mention. When I was shopping for my first car that I was going to buy for myself, I was like, I have to get a hybrid. I have to get something that gets absurd gas mileage, because if I'm going to drive 50 miles back and forth to work every day, I'm going to not want to be in the hole on gas. So I got a Prius, and it was used, and it has a giant dent in the side, and someone keyed it, before I got it. So there is that. Traveling has a cost associated with it. There's no getting around that. And even if the financial cost doesn't yield as much of a gain as maybe a closer show would, or a closer teaching gig, or whatever opportunity presents itself, even if the numbers may not work out so much in your favor as something closer, still consider it. I'm definitely not one to say, oh, well, you should travel just for traveling's sake, because that's not always a possibility. That's not always reasonable. I have had to turn down gigs, like I said, with touring, when the money wasn't going to work out enough to put me in the black for the transaction, or I would have to give up too much to be away from home for that amount of time, or at that specific time, or under that set of circumstances. But for those things, I think it's definitely worth considering. And all of that is kind of having to do with traveling for work. Something that I've been atrocious at is just traveling to go somewhere and relax. I am offered the privilege of standby flights, so either low cost or free flights, and it's hard to take up that offer, because being in the freelance thing, if you're going somewhere and you're not working, you're losing money. I don't have vacation days to rely on. I have a modest savings from trying to start my own sort of business endeavors. So it's not like I can just go hang out. But if you do have the means to do that, if you can travel, spend a weekend 2 hours away, take a road trip and, I don't know, go camping, get a hotel room, get an Airbnb, or, if you can go to if you've got a friend who lives in another state across the country, just, see if you can talk them into letting you crash at their place. Go spend a day or two somewhere else. I find that no matter what kind of work you're doing, you don't even. It's not even you have to go and spend a bunch of money and see all the sights and be a tourist. Just physically being somewhere else is so helpful, that I think it's worth mentioning that side of things too. Even though I'm struggling to be able to practice that all the time, but there's really. It's really fascinating how, the trees in Memphis, Tennessee look different from the trees in Southeast Texas, or the sky that is a completely different color blue 100 miles west. Just all things that I think are important to consider. So if you like to travel, I'd love to hear some of your thoughts and your stories. Hardly any better way to get a good story than traveling somewhere and being somewhere else, because you got to go there, you got to be there, and then you got to get back. Lots of opportunities for good stories to happen. So I hope y'all got something out of this. If you've been presented with an opportunity that requires travel, my advice and my recommendation is just consider it. Not saying absolutely yes, take everything regardless of how far away it is, but just think about it. If you get accepted in a school, if you're looking at college or maybe even grad school, or even a trade school or an internship that would take you into a different city or a different state, or a different country, if you're looking for the scales to be tipped, if you're still on the fence, then do it. I say, go for it, because there's probably always going to be home. Certainly not for everyone, but there's always going to be a place where you feel familiar and where things are going to be super comfortable. So if you can take some time and step out of that comfort zone for a little bit, I think it'll help you grow a lot. All right. So please feel free to reply or shoot me an email or comment on the blog post or hit me up on Facebook or Instagram. I'd love to hear what y'all think about travel and some of the good opportunities and good stories that y'all have. All right. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope y'all be good.